Hey everyone, welcome back. President Trump has just signed a new set of executive orders. They're already changing how the federal government handles crime, public safety, and even free speech in some parts of the country. And you know what's surprising? Some of these changes could have a much bigger impact on everyday life than people realize. Whether you live in a big city, a smaller town, or somewhere in between, the ripple effects could reach you too. So stick around, because what's coming next might help you understand what's really going on and what it could mean for you and your family. Before we get into it, let me ask you something. What do you think about the government stepping in to handle crime in cities? Do you think it's the right move, or is it too much? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. So drop a quick note and let's talk about it. And if you find this helpful, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the updates we'll be sharing. Now, let's start with something that's getting a lot of attention: the crackdown on cashless bail. If you haven't heard of it before, cashless bail is basically when someone arrested doesn't need to pay money to be released before their trial. It started as a way to make the system more fair for people who just couldn't afford bail, especially for smaller crimes. But now, Trump has signed an order that threatens to cut federal funding from places that keep using it. He says it's making crime worse and letting dangerous people back on the streets. Supporters of a change argue it's about keeping communities safer. But here's the thing, there's data out there that tells a different story. Studies have shown that cashless bail hasn't actually led to big spikes in crime. So the debate here is less about facts and more about how people feel about safety and fairness. And feelings about safety, well, those can run really deep, especially when people are worried about their neighborhoods. And what's interesting is how this ties into Washington, D.C., where Trump has been focusing a lot of attention. The new orders mean that people arrested there might end up in federal custody instead of being processed locally. The administration says this will stop repeat offenses, but critics argue it could overload the system and make things even more complicated for residents. Then next, there's the flag burning order, which is, well, it's something we haven't seen in a long time. According to this new rule, anyone who burns an American flag could face up to a year in jail, with no chance for early release. The president says flag burning sparks violence and chaos, and that it needs to be treated as a threat to public order. Now, legally, this is where things get messy, because the Supreme Court ruled decades ago that burning the flag, as offensive as it might feel, is still protected free speech. So the question now is whether this order will hold up in court. Supporters see it as protecting the country's most important symbol. Opponents see it as government overreach and a dangerous step toward limiting free expression. And honestly, you can probably see both sides of this if you think about it. People feel strongly about the flag, and they feel strongly about their rights too. So we're likely to see some major court battles over this in the months to come. And speaking of battles, let's talk about the National Guard, because this part of the orders is huge. The president has directed that special National Guard units be created in every state, ready to move quickly when the government decides they're needed. These units would be trained for things like crowd control, crime response, and supporting local police. And here's where people are getting nervous. In Washington, D.C., thousands of guardsmen have already been deployed. Some are armed, some are patrolling neighborhoods, and the city's police have essentially been brought under federal control. Supporters argue this is exactly what's needed to keep people safe, especially in cities where crime feels out of control. Critics warn that it could set a precedent for the federal government to step into local issues anytime it wants, even without a governor's approval. That's something we haven't really seen before, and it raises a lot of questions about where the limits of federal power should be. Now, let's pause for a second, because I want to hear from you on this. If the National Guard showed up in your city tomorrow, would you feel safer, or would you feel like something had gone too far? Let me know in the comments, because this is one of those moments where people's experiences and perspectives can be really different. Another piece of this puzzle is the big push to change how DC itself is run. The president has been very clear about wanting to clean up the Capitol, both in terms of crime and appearance. There's now a safe and beautiful task force that's focusing on everything from graffiti cleanup to more federal prosecutors to new safety inspections in public housing. The administration says crime is already dropping, with reports of big decreases in carjackings and robberies. Some people are skeptical of those numbers, saying they might just be short-term improvements from increased enforcement. But others point out that even a short-term improvement can make a big difference for families who are tired of feeling unsafe. And there's a symbolic side to all of this too. The idea of restoring DC to what the president calls the most beautiful capital in the world is about more than just the city. It's about sending a message that the federal government is taking control, making things safer, and projecting strength. Whether you agree or disagree, you can't ignore how powerful that message is for a lot of people who feel like things have been slipping out of control. So then, what does all of this really mean for you? Well, it depends on where you live and what your priorities are. If you're in a city that's been struggling with crime, you might welcome the extra support and tougher rules. If you're more concerned about personal freedoms, the idea of the federal government stepping in this way might make you uneasy. And that's the tension we're seeing play out right now. It's safety versus liberty, and both sides have real concerns. What's more, these orders aren't just about immediate changes. They're setting the stage for a much bigger debate about how much power the federal government should have over local issues. If these orders hold up in court, we could be looking at a new normal where the line between federal and local authority is a lot blurrier than it used to be. And guess what? That debate isn't just happening in Washington. It's happening in living rooms, at kitchen tables, and online. People are talking about whether they feel safer, whether they trust the government to make these decisions, and what they think the trade-offs should be. And honestly, those are conversations worth having because the outcomes will affect everyone in one way or another. Now, something that's easy to miss in all of this is how these actions are also shaping the political conversation. The administration is framing these moves as proof that they're serious about law and order, and for supporters, that's a powerful message. At the same time, opponents are pointing to what they see as dangerous overreach, warning that these kinds of actions could erode constitutional protections over time. And that back and forth is going to be with us for a while, especially as legal challenges move forward and more people start to see the real-world impact of these policies. So where does that leave us? For now, it means we're in a period of big changes and big questions. Whether you're excited about these orders, worried about them, or maybe a bit of both, it's important to stay informed and to think critically about what's happening. Because these aren't just headlines. They're policies that could reshape how communities feel, how they're protected, and how much control they have over their own futures. And let's be real, there's a lot more to come. Court cases, state responses, maybe even new legislation could change how these orders work in practice. So, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, you're not alone. The key is to take it piece by piece, understand what each order is about, and think about how it fits into the bigger picture of what you want for your community and your country. So yeah, that's where things stand right now. A president pushing for stronger federal control in the name of safety, a public that's divided but deeply invested in what happens next, and a legal system that's going to have to sort through some of the toughest questions about power and freedom that we've faced in a long time. What do you think? Are these steps making you feel safer, or do you think we're heading down a different path? Share your thoughts, because your voice really does matter in conversations like this. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we'll keep breaking this down as things develop.